Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our fourth Welcome Table Talk, proudly hosted by Wintergreen Women Writers Collective in partnership with Torch Literary Arts. My name is Maroon Price, and I'm the project coordinator of the Wintergreen Women Writers Collective. Wintergreen is a 501c3 organization that gathers Black women writers in literary community that seeks to publish, document, preserve, and celebrate their creative work. More than 70 women have taken part in one or more of the Wintergreen retreats or programming over the past 39 years, coming to a place where they can do the sacred work of literary and cultural production. Wintergreen women are prefiguring a world where the history and legacy of Black women writers are honored and preserved, a world where Black women writers have access to intergenerational spaces, where in community and mutuality, they can nurture one another and locate resources to support their creative practice. As we prepare to spend time tonight thinking about Black artists in search of sanctuary, I wanted to open with a brief poem from one of my favorite poets, Lucille Clifton. When I think of sanctuary, my mind goes to the warmth and comfort of domestic spaces, like the kitchen table. This brief poem is called Sunday Dinner. One once, in a fantastic time, the certainty of chicken popping in grease, the truth of potatoes steaming the panes, and butter, gold and predictable as heroes in history, melting over all. I'm looking forward tonight to hearing what our panelists think sanctuary means to them and hearing questions from you, the audience, as well. We want to start by giving an introduction to our ASL interpreters, Marcus and Christina from Pro Bono ASL. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I also have the honor of introducing tonight's moderator, my colleague, Opal Moore. Opal Moore is the author of the poetry collection Lot's Daughters, a meditation on Black souls in migration. Her poems, short fiction, and essays appear in various journals and anthologies, including Bigger Than Bravery, Black Resilience and Reclamation in a Time of Pandemic, the Boston Review, Callaloo, the Notre Dame Review, Honey Hush, an anthology of African American women's humor and home places, Stories of the South by Women Writers. Opal is a Cave Canem Fellow, a Bellagio Fellow, and an original member of the Wintergreen Women Writers Collective. As our programs and partnerships coordinator, she is responsible for architecting the programming like our Welcome Table Talks in partnership with Torch Literary Arts, stewarding our partnership with CETA Press, and developing new outreach and initiatives. We at Wintergreen are so grateful for this partnership with Torch, and we're looking forward to an exciting evening tonight and many more exciting conversations that we hope all of you will join us for. So without further ado, please welcome Opal Moore.
Thank you, Maroon, and thank you for bringing Lucille Clifton into the room tonight. I'm so pleased to be here and also to introduce our artists. Ashunda Norris is a Black feminist, multidisciplinary artist with creative work that encompasses film, poetry, archiving, and her own theoretical frameworks. Her art is preoccupied with ancestral inheritance, Black womanhood as a freedom site, futuristic maroon expressions, and fugitivity. She has written, directed, and produced several films, including her most recent multi-award-winning cinematic project, MINO, a Diasporic Myth, now streaming on kweliTV. A California Arts Council Individual Artist Fellow, Ashunda's art has been supported by Cave Canem, Torch Literary Arts, Tin House, the Hurston Wright Foundation, Community of Writers, Brooklyn Poets, and the New York State Summer Writers Institute. She is a two-time Furious Flower Poetry Prize finalist, a Pushcart Prize nominee, and one of 15 filmmakers selected for Array's Haile Gerima Liberated Territory MasterClass. Ashunda's writing has been featured or is forthcoming in Poetry Northwest, Salamander, Gulf Coast, Obsidian, Evergreen Review, the Adroit Journal, Rootwork Journal, and Fence, among other noteworthy literary publications. Ashunda is the founder of Sibyls Palace, a Black woman-centered art house that produces oppositional cinema and photography. Currently, she is in pre-production for a new work, Crossed Kalunga by the Stars. Ashunda Norris is a member of Torch Literary Arts. Welcome, Ashunda.
Thank you.
Desiree Cooper. Desiree is a prize-winning short story writer, poet, essayist, children's book author, Pulitzer Prize nominated journalist, and a 2015 Kresge Art Fellow. Her latest publications include her compelling anthology, Black Summers, Growing Up in the Urban Outdoors, and her award-winning children's picture book, Nothing Special, which was a top 10 children's book of 2022 and received the 2023 Patterson Prize for Books for Young People. Both works are drawn from family histories. Her debut collection of flash fiction, Know the Mother, was a 2017 Michigan Notable Book and a finalist for the Full Word Indies Book of the Year Award and the Midwest Book Awards. In 2018, Cooper wrote, produced, and co-directed The Choice, a short film about reproductive rights, which received awards from the Berlin Flash Film Festival and the Best Short Film Festival in Los Angeles. Cooper's work has appeared in the New York Times, 2023 Flash Fiction America, the Best Small Fictions 2018, Callaloo, Michigan Quarterly Review, The Rumpus, and other publications. Her essay, We Have Lost Too Many Wigs, was included in the Best American Essays of 2019. Desiree Cooper is a member of the Wintergreen Women Writers Collective. Welcome, Ashunda, again. Welcome, Desiree. And welcome to all of the folks who are joining us tonight for I Know a Place, Black Women Artists, Imagine Sanctuary. I thought I would open with words from our beloved and marvelous poet, writer, everything else, Patricia Smith. And these are comments that appeared in an interview with Tiffany Troy for Tupelo Quarterly. Writing, she says, is like a second throat. Writing is grace and permission. I write because it is becoming increasingly difficult to walk through this world without running or hiding. Writing is another landscape for language, a landscape where you can find the words to describe the impossible moment, the impossible feeling. The impossible moment, the impossible feeling. Let's go, y'all. To begin, I've asked you both to open this conversation discussing two works in particular. Desiree, your short film, The Choice, suggests your work as a journalist, your 30 years of work as a journalist. The work is very present day, very immediate, very, ongoing. And Ashunda, your short film, Minos, a Diasporic Myth, is set in the Afro future of 2079. I love this pairing because the works are so different from one another, and yet they focus on women's lives and choices, and they summon in different ways the desire for sanctuary, for refuge, for safety. So, question, how did these works come to you? Why were the projects compelling? Or what question or questions inspired them? You can take any one of those approaches that that you're feeling. For instance, both of these works center reproduction, but in very, very, very different ways. I wonder, Desiree, you want to get us started here?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you to Wintergreen and Torch Literary for allowing us this forum to have this conversation. And I hope that many people here who are also creatives will be inspired to find and define their own versions of sanctuary, especially sanctuary of the imagination.
Yeah.
Um, so my piece started out as flash fiction. And it's so interesting, Opal, how you kind of characterize the choice. The piece is called The Choice, as being informed by journalism. It does have that just the facts, ma'am,
Mhm.
who, what, when, where, why kind of
Yeah.
cadence to it. Every sentence in it represents the life or the situation of a different woman facing an unplanned pregnancy. And they all choose to go through an abortion, but we kind of walk through them all with all the different feelings, all the different fears, all the different confidences that they may carry as they go through that process. So, one thing that we haven't been able to do, I think, as a community is really embrace the fact that the woman who uh, feels destined to be a mother can be the same woman who feels like she cannot mother yet another child.
Mm.
You know, a woman who is worried about her fertility couldn't be the same woman at some point who for whom her fertility is not no longer an issue. And so we have many thoughts at many different phases. And so the choice isn't only about a choice, sort of what I call in meat space or real life. It's a choice spiritually, it's a choice in time. And we have to make room for all of those kinds of conversations. I feel that particularly for women and particularly for women of African ancestry in the United States, dominion over our reproduction is not a personal conversation. It is a political, a social political conversation. And so we can't talk about sanctuary, that place of peace and that place of truth, without talking about who has dominion over our bodies. And so that's where that piece came from. I actually wrote it during the first Trump presidency. Forgive me for bringing his name into this room.
Thank you.
And but it was my scream. It was my second throat, as you said, what was stuck in my throat, that we can't keep turning back time when it comes to reproductive choice without knowing what it is we're closing the door upon. And since we don't talk about it, it was time for me to scream. And when I wrote that, I I read that piece in every reading I did for 2 years, no matter how appropriate or inappropriate it may have felt for the people that invited me. So I will leave it there, but that's the genesis of how I came to that piece.
Fantastic. Thank you. So Ashunda, she's thrown it out there, the
Yeah.
socio-political piece.
Hmm.
Um, but am fascinated by how you managed to put women in the foreground
Hmm.
in the story of MINO. Could you tell us, how this project came to you and, the compellment uh,
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
questions that you're raising there?
Okay. Happy to be here. Appreciate both Torch and Wintergreen. It's very good to sit here and talk about art and being a Black woman artist. So
Mhm.
for me, I was exhausted. I think it was 2016. It was I was working full time as a high school teacher, and all the isms and all the everything was just crashing down. And I had support, but the support was coming from Black women. That there other people would say they support, and it just wasn't happening. And I was just exhausted. So I was just like, what if the world is just Black women? And what if we just get rid of everybody and just start over to how it was before we just made everybody else? Like, what if we just go back to how it is? And that's honestly how it started. Like just thinking about how people were like, listen to Black women, hashtag and trust Black women hashtag, but people were not doing it in practice, right?
Mm.
They were saying these like lofty things, and I knew from my own experience that people who were saying these things online were actually damaging Black women in their own lives. So that was really jarring. It created like a cognitive dissonance. I was like, these people are not serious. This is not for real. But when I would reach out to Black women, somebody was going to help me. Out of all the ones I reached out to, someone was going to actually give me actual support. And that's how the story came to me. Um, the conception part of the film came to me later. Honestly, I was just thinking about like a safe space where Black women can just like be around each other and just have our own ways of being. The conception part came a little bit later. I was like, well, how am I gonna, rationalize that this world is only women? And how do they have babies? I was like, well, they just self-conceive and they only self-conceive women, girls who identify as girls, right? So that's how it came to me, just being exhausted and just thinking about, well, what do I want to see on screen? What do I want? Like when I go to the movie theater, how do I want to feel safe? And that's pretty much how it came to be. The questions that inspired it, I mean, I was thinking about, like I said before, safety. Like, how do I make that happen? And that's how I started writing. So I kind of went back to old ways of being. I kind of went back to um, ancestral ways of knowing. And in that reality, the Black women were like taking care of each other and taking care of everyone else, but they weren't exhausted because someone was lifting. For example, if you have women and elders in perimenopause, you have the younger girls who are taking over while the older women are resting and giving advice, right? So no one was really exhausted. So I thought about all of that and putting it into the film.
Okay, all right. I'm going to give you a chance later to say just exactly what what the conflict is in MINO because it's a very
Yeah.
intriguing setup. We have all women now, but we still have these questions about the folks who aren't there, right? So, and that reminds me of something that is, powerfully present in women's communities. We are very, people may not be there, the men may not be there, but in a way, there's still a presence in our lives. So I want to go to the second question. So we grant that the world is unsafe. Even our communities can be unsafe spaces, unsafe for us in our bodies, unsafe for ideas, creative risk taking. I want to lean into that a bit. This, the price and the contest of creative risk taking in your work. What does the artist need in order to take creative chances when necessary or demanded by the work itself? Do artists have to watch our backs to make art that seems risky, that ventures into unsafe territories? Is this something that you have had to think about in making your work?
Well, I will say for sure, because in talking about reproductive justice in polite company, um, I couldn't help but always think, is that one nutcase out there in the audience? Or how am I going to be challenged doing question and answer? And will this melt down, into an argument? And so a couple of things. I mean, so that's the risk of bringing your female self into a room,
Mhm. Yeah.
period. Okay. Even that word, period. Like once I was in a conference room and a tampon rolled out of my pocket onto the floor. How dare I bring my female self into this place? I spent the whole meeting trying to figure out how to pick it up off the floor or kick it, further without, other disrupting, causing a melee in the room. So I think on some level, especially if you have to resort to art and the creative, imaginative space
Mm,
to be expressive, that means you have been suppressed, I think, in
mm,
other aspects of your life. So it all goes into an imaginative space or a creative space. And so by the time you're pushed into that space, you may have redefined what risk means. And that's something we got to understand. And that is, if it doesn't come out one way, it'll come out another. And so I felt that if I was quiet, I would die and other women would die. And so where's the risk? You speak up. The risk is being quiet, right? And so at some point, I do think that art compels itself. Once you get to that point where you have to create that, then you are maybe close to the point where you can stand by it and take it into any kind of room and let it be what it needs to be in that space. So I did worry that I was putting myself at some risk at that time, but it was a very short-lived worry, and it did not overshadow my need, that survival instinct to say what needed to be said.
I like what you said about the silencing. Zora Neale Hurston has this quote that says, if you are silent about your pain, they will kill you and say you enjoyed it.
Exactly.
And I think she was talking about two things that happen for Black women, right? Like she's talking about going into these rooms where people are being racist, but she's also talking about the sexism in our own, right?
Yes.
If you're thinking about Black women who were silenced, it took Alice Walker to bring Zora back because the community had turned their backs, right? Like it's just heartbreaking when you think about what silence can do. And I feel the same way. Like if I don't write, if I don't express myself, I do feel like I would not survive, right? So I was thinking about that. The risk is always there, I guess. I mean, my very existence in the American context of global anti-Blackness, like it's always a risk. So I feel like you measure the risk and then you just kind of say, fuck it. I mean, that's how I do, right? Like I just say, this is gonna be a risk. Like I would give an example of like feminism, right? Like Black feminism, like hiding it. Like I just didn't feel safe saying it around certain people. I started as a poet in DC and it was very like male centered, right? But I was very accepted because I had the locks. They were very long. I was very like, my poems were like making sure Black males felt included. And then I was in grad school and learned about Black feminism and just feeling a deep like shame about like my awakening as a Black woman, like, oh, this is not matching, something's off, right? So that was a risk, even just coming out publicly as a Black feminist, right? Like within my own community. Um, it was a risk to make the film. I knew I was going to get pushback, right? Because I'm working in a male-dominated industry and I'm bringing Black women to the forefront. And some people literally have never seen a film that's led exclusively by Black women, right? And I'm going to these film festivals. So it was in the back of my head, like somebody's gonna say something, right? Like, I mean, it happens in pre-production. Most of my films, you either love or hate them. So the way people respond in pre-production is telling me how the audience is gonna respond because I'm dealing with artists. And if they're like having problems, then I know that there's probably gonna be some risk taken that's happening that people may not respond well to, but I really honestly at this point do not care. Like I have to make the art that speaks to me and I know it speaks to other people. So yeah, that's what I did. I mean, I got slapped. People would send me Facebook commentary, usually men. I'm not even gonna I'm gonna be honest and say Black women, they're either like stay silent because they're so respectful of each other, or they're like, oh my God, this is XYZ, XYZ, right? Like it was a very respectful, like, oh, this is not my vibe, but not like attacking me, right? That wasn't happening with Black women. They just disagreed, did not enjoy it, but they wouldn't like send me messages or take a moment in like a film festival to be like, well, you need me in for XYZ. Like it's just like really, so it's a risk, just really ignorant things are gonna happen. So I measure them and then I say, well, I'm just gonna do it anyway. But it's not as easy as I'm saying it now. It's a whole process of journaling and getting all the like voices out of my head and just pushing through what I know is going to be facing me once the art is finished.
Can I just pick up on what Shunda just said? Because I think it's just so important. The voices in your head and the resistance in your head can be preemptive. It's a way your limbic system is trying to protect you from pain by just telling you the pain's coming, the pain's coming. But what's really interesting is that quite often it's only risky because so few people have said it, not because it's out of bounds. And once you say it, the people come out of the woodwork, like me too. That's how I felt, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying that you don't get pushback, but you also get people that are just like, wow,
Mm.
I see myself in your work. This is my experience. This is my life. And so I also think that validation can be very unexpected because we're prepared for the worst
Mhm.
and to have to defend rather than, it's almost a war stance,
Mhm.
rather than sort of a giving and open stance, which is kind of hard to do if you're defensive.
Mhm.
But when your work is really honest and comes from a truth that you've experienced, it's going to touch other people who share that truth, who are not reflected in art in general.
Yeah,
And that's a huge gift.
yeah,
Yes, really wonderful. Like
Mhm.
screening the film, people were weeping.
Yeah,
So there's always, I was not expecting that. So there's always like these nice surprises because you're in the trenches, right? Like any
Mhm.
type of art. And then for filmmaking, it's like your head is just down. So you don't even know that people are responding unless you have to like really lift your head up and pay attention to how people are carrying the film. Um,
Thank you both. And feel free to circle back to any of these points that you're raising when you feel the need, if you feel that, there's some reiteration to be made. So, Desiree, your newest anthology, Black Summers, Growing Up in the Urban Outdoors, is described in one instance as a blend of nostalgia with struggle and resistance. Race and the threat of racial violence, physical, psychological, and economic, is a feature of Black American story. I want to ask how you solicited for this volume, and if we flip the racial script, do we find writers seeking to uncover important stories of the search for sanctuary, if not physical safety, then psychological elbow room? And is this search what we mean by joy?
that's a whole thesis, Opal. I love this question.
Well, you can pick any piece of that you like.
Wow.
You don't have to try to cover the whole thing.
Let me just say this. I think one of the important things about sharing our stories is that it keeps us from beginning for forgetting the why. Like, why is soul food? And we know why. It started somewhere, okay? And it started from oppression, and it started from isolation, and it started from deprivation. But man, is it good, right? I mean, we made it joy. We made it joy.
Mm.
And so when I asked 20 odd Detroiters, 20 some Detroiters, they weren't odd people, but about 20 Detroiters, how did race shape your experience of the urban outdoors? Many of them could answer that question right away. But many were like, it didn't really. I played baseball. We played in the alley. I'm like, well, why were you playing in the alley?
Mm.
Well, that was the nearest place we had. Why was that the only place you had? You have white contemporaries that were playing in giant parks and manicured. Why weren't you? Or
Mhm.
Mr. So-and-so, took us to the batting cage
Mm.
and he was like our community center. Well, why didn't you go to community center? Well, we didn't have one. So you have to get people to drill down because we have made a way out of no way for so long that we definitely forget
Mm.
that it started from an effort to kill us.
Mhm.
And it didn't happen. You talk about flip the script, Opal. We
Mhm.
turned it to joy, right?
Yeah.
And so I think these stories of the urban outdoors are stories that sort of begin in places where you can't get in the pool. There are no pools. There are no parks around you. There's redlining. There's over policing of areas. And so you can't have fun there. And then it turns out that, you invent ways to create sanctuary as we're getting back to the conversation.
Mhm.
Um, it's almost an inclination of survival that if no place is safe, you got to make one. And maybe that's your kitchen, and maybe that's your front porch, and maybe that's the blacktop in the neighborhood where you can play basketball all day. But we've got to count it as sanctuary, and that's where the creative mind is so great at holding up the mirror and saying, "Look what you did. Look what this really is." Ashunda, in your piece, there's a scene of women braiding their hair, having their hair braided. And I really teared up so much because what what is what is more beautiful and more peaceful than another Black woman with their hands in your hair, twisting and braiding, even your mother hitting you on your head with forehead with a comb or whatever. Be still, but you're between her knees, you're in love. This is a generational conversation, woman to woman through our hair. And I recognize that immediately. The film does not scream that. It's not even about that, but that place of sanctuary touched me immediately. It held it up like it's not just about getting your hair did. This
Exactly.
is ritual and sanctuary for us. So I do think that art has a wonderful way of doing that. So the artist creates enough sanctuary within themselves to put it out there, and then others receive it and see themselves reflected as this, there was power in that, what we do, what we eat, how we sing, how
Mhm.
we play, how we touch. It's power in that.
Thank you. Ashunda, I had the feeling you wanted to get in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
No?
was thinking about nature. Yeah, I was thinking about nature. I was thinking about our first connection to the earth is nature, right? And
Mhm.
thinking about how the outdoors has been stripped from us. Like that's the first place we go as people. Like the plants, we're all connected to the trees, to the roots, right? And I love to hike. I was thinking about what Desiree said. I love to hike, right? Like I found safe spaces to hike. In California or when I travel to certain parts of Europe. Like I try to hike wherever I go. It's like collecting like a souvenir, but like a spiritual souvenir, right?
Yeah.
But I came to Georgia. I was like, let me go see if I can hike, So I found this place to go. And I went and my spirit was like, girl, something happened here. And I understand,
Mm,
I said, and I felt it. I was like, it's time to turn around. No one was out there. I was alone, but the land felt haunted, like something had happened. I turned right on around and I left because I knew my spirit was moving me out of the space, but it also helps me understand why my parents be like, why is you out the door? Somebody's gonna get you. And it would be true. Someone would get you in certain parts of the country. So I kind of finally understood why my people would find other sanctuaries other than being outside. But
Mm.
it was also me trying to reclaim being outside because I know there's a connection, right? My grandmother walking around barefoot, not understanding that she was grounding herself.
Yeah.
Um, so that was on my spirit when Desiree was talking about creating
Mhm.
sanctuaries outside of spaces that have created violence against us.
Yeah, I have been looking for those moments in these works, and Ashunda, we talked a little bit earlier, and I asked you, how did you create that lush kind of nature space
Mm,
in Minos? And because it's just stunning, and I was thinking, where is this?
yeah.
So could you tell us a bit about, just the resourcefulness of finding a way, and I don't know how much money you had to spend, so, just sort of
Yeah,
making a beautiful, just sort of really a kind of polished piece of
yeah,
work. And
yeah.
I'm looking at this going, okay, I don't know how much money she had to throw around here, but tell us about that, just the
Yeah,
creation of the environment that you made.
like I was working full time. Like I said, I was working full time as a high school teacher in a really underfunded school that served Black and brown
Mm,
children. So I'm also a psychologist. I'm a mother. I'm an auntie. I'm doing all that work at work. So I would always go hiking. And so I told myself, like, let me just on the weekends, let's just scout for locations. And I would just find places I love to hike or what I always wanted to hike to see if it was something was seen to me when I went out to the locations. And that's basically what happened like every weekend for like this every weekend, no matter how I felt on Saturday morning after a week of teaching, I got up on Saturday and Sunday and drove around to like finding different locations. And I finally found some places out in the outskirts of LA. California is a beautiful state. When you go further out of the city, it's just gorgeous. So that's what I did. And my cinematographer was like, we just gonna make this look really expensive. That was his exact word. So shout out to my DP for saying, we're gonna make this look crisp and clean and fancy and expensive. With very little resources. A really good camera, a
mm,
really good grip, stylistic choices,
mhm,
production design came up, Chloe, my production designer, shout out to her. Just like using the people around me. Like once I had the locations, I was like, well, this is where we're gonna shoot it. What can we do with this? And how can we make it futuristic without using all the technological jargons, right? Like the lush type of sterile silver buildings, right? Like that's associated with sci-fi. I was like, well, what if we just take it back to how Africans do sci-fi, right?
mhm,
And we always connect into nature plus the skies, right?
mhm.
So that was the conversation we had, but it was hard work. I mean, some Saturdays I did not want to get out of my bed. I was exhausted. Um, but I was like, well, I got to get this film done and I can't afford a location scout. So I'm going to have to do it myself. So I used basically spirit was leading me to all these places I love in nature. And it kind of just came together.
All right. Well, it does have that polish. I'm telling you, it's
Yes, it's
it's a
beautiful.
beautiful, it's a beautiful work. And I
Thank
I
wanted,
you.
wanted to ask Ashunda about the water, and the water scene because water came up when the writers to the anthology were writing about the urban outdoors, and it came up in a very specific way. So Black people don't swim. Black people don't like water. And yet it seems like our art is full of water. And you definitely have, the water scene is just gorgeous.
Mhm. Yeah.
How was that necessary? You could have kept it in the green spaces, but
Oh
when
yeah,
you
because
went to the
again,
water.
before we take our first breath, we're in our mother's womb. We're in water for like 9 months.
oh, well, true.
Water, we come from water, right? Like we go to certain ancient African traditions, specifically the Dahomey tribe about the sky, right? Coming into water and coming into water beings. So all of that is trauma. We don't swim, some of us don't swim because of trauma, like because our bodies still remember that passage, right? Like our bodies still remember. I have an irrational fear of open water. Where does that come from?
Yeah.
I was in
You're
my
not
mother's
getting on
womb for
that
nine
boat.
months. You know what I'm saying, right? Some people just say I'm not getting on the boat. So I had to interrogate that fear and face it, right? Like, so that was part of it too, just going back again to ancestral practices. Like I took a trip to Africa to make a film. And I remember me and my sister we were in Uganda and we were like, people was just swimming. Yo, Africans, people want it was swimming like everywhere. Everywhere we went, all in the pools. It's no playing around, it's actual swimming. And I was like, you know what? There's a connection between what happened to us on those boats
Mm,
and seeing people who were born on the continent actually embracing water. So it just made me go back to like ancestrally, like we're not afraid of water. We've been traumatized to not absorb water, right? Or there's so much trauma and like resistance to us actually being in water and on stateside that we built up this resistance to it that is not really part of who we are, right? Like I said, the water in the womb. I was thinking about that when I created it. The womb.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. I have a piece in Black Summers. I wrote an introductory piece and it's called We Water. Just to sort of push back, first of all, on that idea that Black people don't have anything to do with water. And then you have urban Black people, where are they going to find the water? And of course, Detroiters are very reverent about the Detroit River in particular, because that was the last stop on the Underground Railroad before you crossed into Canada. And part of what I wrote was for the ones that decided to stay in Detroit, they stayed to become Americans. The others became Canadians. And there is a big connection between the Black families in Detroit and Black families in Canada. They have family reunions across the water because they're still connected. And we have broken the waters ever since, raising our dark generations in Detroit's rich black bottom. We quenched our drinking gourd thirst, fished freedom from the ancient lakes. Over troubled water, we built our bridges. We wished it would rain. We had wade in the water Sundays. We sang of still water. We didn't wait till our water ran dry. The water has long been salted by our blood.
Beautiful.
So, and it goes on from there. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, I hate to say this, but we're probably at the last 5 minutes. So I'm going to go to the most open-ended question that I have for you. And it sounds like this. What will you have us, your listening participants, consider about our responsibility of making space in our minds for works that resist, resist, resist? I'm bringing Sister Sonia in the room here. As we go to meet our artists, where they want us to imagine going. And I ask that question because we see a lot of formulaic work being produced, but I'm asking, do we have a responsibility to meet our artists where they want to go? What are your thoughts? What would you tell us about that? And this is for both artists, and then I think we might be going to questions from our audience.
Yeah, I would point to bell hooks, the oppositional gaze. When bell hooks was like, I'm a spectator, I'm looking. The way I look is different because you're not including me in this film. I don't see myself, so I'm going to interrogate what I see, right? So for me, it's about creating cinema that puts Black women as a subject instead of the object, right? So even like films are part of like so-called mainstream. The Black women are not the subjects, we the objects. I won't go into specific films, but most of the time we're the object of somebody else's gaze. And so I say for artists to create, especially if you're a Black woman in the audience, you create for yourself, right? And sometimes there's this like thing in us where we're like trying to create for other people, but I think you need to just really ask yourself, like, what do I want to see? And usually it's you like speaking back to the screen or you opposing. Your gaze is oppositional when you're looking, right? And how are you going to make your art oppositional? How are you opposing the so-called dominant forces? You are the dominant force. You're a Black woman, right? Like your force. If you look about how they try to like get us to sell things, like Serena with the Ozempic is a prime example of using Black women's body to sell Ozempic to people, right? Or I don't know, traveling. Like you just see like Trace Ellis Ross traveling around the world. Like that's a commodity, right? So I'm just thinking about what do you want to see? And you should put that on the screen, you should put that on paper, and you should ignore all the voices, including your own, that's telling you you shouldn't do it. Because if it's telling you you shouldn't, you're just scared and maybe you got to push through. So I was thinking about thinking about your oppositional gaze, thinking about what do you see and how do you see the world? Because it's completely unique from how other people see it and kind of embrace that.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I would just
Desiree.
add to that, I love that. And I would add to it to when you say resist, it feels um aggressive, maybe, you
Mhm,
know.
mhm,
And art can be very peaceful and very quiet.
mhm.
The point of it, the resisting is not becoming an animal. That's how you're resisting. Do not become an animal in all of this chaos. And for creative people, that means create art to prove you are not an animal. Okay? That you have passion, you have heart, you are human, and you have love for humanity. So the art doesn't have to necessarily be, sunshine and lollipops, but it's emanating from you. That's the point. That is the resistance. You have resisted becoming a cog in the wheel, another device or tool. So the resistance is literally opening your mouth and speaking, using your hands and creating. That is the definition of resistance. So don't be silent, and especially Black women.
I'm glad you made the point that to resist is not necessarily an invocation for violence, because it certainly is not that.
Mhm.
To resist is what both you and Ashunda have been saying, even when we were talking about the Black Summers, you were talking about resistance, but one of the interesting parts is that you kind of suggested that part of resistance sometimes is forgetting. And writers and artists are often in the business of remembering. So they're
Mhm.
going to bring back those things that we've buried and ask us to deal with that. And I think that's a form of resistance as well, to
Absolutely.
maintain, to keep, to bring it back, to remind. I want to thank both of you for your very thoughtful commentaries, but also for your work. And I want to remind the audience that much of this work has been linked in the chat. I invite everyone to make sure that they take advantage of the fact that you've made your work available, these short films available to us. So I think, let's see, we're right at the time where we want to ask whether we have audience questions. Okay, so I'm looking in the chat, and here's an interesting question. How do you navigate sanctuary when you feel that sanctuary wasn't built for you? That's an interesting kind of question. I think we would have to sort of tease something out of that question. But
What's
what do
the
you think
question?
about that? How do you navigate sanctuary when you feel that it wasn't built for you? In other words, if there are certain structures of safety, but perhaps you're not welcome, I wonder if that's how that question is intended. And I'm going to ask you, Ashunda, since we didn't get to your creation, Sibyls Palace. I'm
Mhm.
wondering if Sibyls Palace is, which is a Black woman-centered art house. Is this a built safe space for creative women who are working on film? How does Sybil's Palace work?
Yeah, it's basically because it's hard to get greenlit as an artist, right? So I was like, well, let me just do it myself. And that's how that came about. It came in a dream. My ancestors was like, we need to do something. And I was
Mm-hmm.
ignoring it for months, like for months. And they were like, you need to put it on your website. You need to say it. This is the name of it. It was very like strategic, but I'm hard headed, right? So I was having dreams. This is the name of it. I was having thoughts about it. This is why you should do it. And I didn't get no peace until I put it on my website and started like taking pictures, doing a photography grant.
Mm-hmm.
Until I started like creating my own safe space of Black women artists who comes together every month. That's when they got kind of got quiet. I was like, okay, Okay. So that's how it came about. Like I really needed a place to like put my art, and I also needed a place to talk to other Black women about the
Yeah.
art. And so that's what it was. And I just kind of kept having dreams and getting bugged about it. So I was like, I just need to say it and do it.
Mm.
Um, because obviously that's something I need to be putting out into the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that for me, sort of answers the question in a different way. It says, well, if you've got these places that are unsafe, maybe part of our work is to create new spaces,
Yeah.
and then invite people in who, like you, are looking for those spaces. I suspect that that is what Sybil's Palace is achieving.
Yeah.
That it says, come on in,
Yeah.
we're gonna do this together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
I
and I would add something that it, I think a lot of maybe Black female artists come up against, and that is their own family may not quite be on board with what the art is or being an artist. And you would think that your home, that your family would be sanctuary, and it can quite often be the opposite. Shunda has a great Substack. Shunda is it Shunda said? And I was reading one of the essays there, and I was so struck by the moment that you talk about your mother says, you don't make no movies. You're like, I'm gonna go make movies. You don't make no movies. I mean, like dagger in the heart. My
Mhm.
dad, who had Alzheimer's, so I'm going to chalk it up to that, but I know it just magnified what was in his heart. One day he looked at me, I'm 66. He might have looked at me like I was 62 and said, "When did you become a writer?" Dagger in the heart, because he has me, I did a million other things to meet expectations before I fully embrace myself as a creative.
Mm. Yeah.
So I do have to say that I think sometimes we can be very misunderstood by the people closest to us.
Mm.
And that maybe that's not the place that you're going to find sanctuary for your art. It
Mm.
might be in other ways, but you do have to find safe spaces for your creative self that you're going to have to invent and you're going to
Mhm.
have to attract
Mhm.
the people who can be supportive of you. In that endeavor, and don't even necessarily expect it
Yeah.
from your closest circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking, our spirit so must be communicating because I was thinking about that too. I was like, the sanctuary might not be with your family.
No,
Specifically your mama. If you got a mama like mine, baby, you're gonna have to go in the opposite direction and
Mm.
just it takes a very like what's it called? It's called a laser focus. You
Mm.
have to have laser focus. And I know it's difficult. I'm speaking to all the people in the audience who are like, my
Mm.
mama said is you gotta say I don't care, even if you still care, so you can trick
Mm.
your brain.
You trick your brain. I like that.
And that's what it takes, man. Like it's hard though. It's not easy to create your own sanctuary, but you cannot trust some of your family members to support
Mm.
this that you're doing because they're scared. You can't let their fear
Mm.
become your fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
amen to that. I love that.
Yeah. Cool. I happen to know this question asker. I'm going to read the question. Thank you for this powerful conversation. I absolutely love when Lucille Clifton writes, quote, they ask me to remember their memories and I keep on remembering mine, end quote. It's a great moment to bring Lucille Clifton back into the conversation here. How does remembrance, the questioner goes on, how does remembrance serve as a purpose in your writing and in your art? What is the value of recollection for Black women writers? And I'm going to throw another word in there, research, study, and reading, as a part of that recollection process. What do you say about this tension between remembering the story, living inside of the memories that have been handed to you, uh, as opposed to searching for that recollection, that recollection, that gives you, that takes you to story.
Well, recollection implies collection in the first
Mhm.
place.
Yeah, right.
Or remembering means that the members are now put together as opposed to still disparate, still separate members. So I think that we can have a job as Black women of my little toddler used to say rememorize, and I thought that that was such a good word.
Yeah.
But I need to see how they sign that, rememorize. Oh, they're going to spell it out. Okay. Um, yeah, so I think that we have to do it in the first place. It's never been done. You know what I'm saying? So we're not
Mhm.
remembering anything. We are really bringing it out to the fore for the first time in a particular way.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Okay.
so that can be one job. Another job can be to validate um, traumas and joys from the past by calling them forward into the present. That's amazing. Now, what some people really object to is loving our traumas and just sort of rolling in it and just always like throwing it forward. And there are people who are like, why can't you be more positive? And there's good points. And I think we have to have a balance between being able to see what is true and have a sanctified space where people can say, this happened to me. You can't tell me I can't say this happened to me in this space, okay?
Mhm.
Versus I am this. So I am, a thief or an addict. No, you've experienced,
Mhm.
you've had the experience of addiction, you've had the experience of assault, you've had the experience of poverty, but you are not poor,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know? So the art needs to bring the experience forward without re-traumatizing and without, just bringing it to gaze at forever and ever without transformation. That's what I was looking for. It's got to transform the trauma or the experience.
I think that's a great place to get to, the transformation of the experience and not sort of letting the experience overwhelm.
Mhm.
There are lots and lots and lots of great questions, both in the Q&A and in the chat. So we're gonna capture all these questions, folks. So stick with us. We may be able to bring some responses to some of these questions later. We might, ask our artists to do that. But here's a great question. Very simple and straightforward. How can I build community where I am? I wonder if both of you have really vivid experiences of knowing that you were going to go out and start doing the kind of work that you hoped would build the kind of community that you need. And Ashunda, you were saying, you can't necessarily expect your family or the folks you grew up with to be on the page where you are. So what is that work? What does that work look like, building community where you are?
It's
For
hard.
you, for you, yeah.
It's hard for me because I like to stay in my house and be on my sofa and watch TV. So I would say community building is very difficult for me in person, especially since
Hmm.
the pandemic happened. I was like, oh, this is wonderful. It was every writer's dream to be in a house all day. Um, so I started, well, almost every writer for me, I was like, oh, this is wonderful. Um, so I started finding places online I could go to, right? Like a lot of women groups, and I go to those first. It's just habit. Let me see where the women at. Let me see the women of color. Where's Black women? So I like find those spaces online. Um, and then just force myself to show up because I registered for something and I'm like, oh, maybe not today. So you got to do
Mhm.
the work of like finding like a place and then actually showing up. Um,
Mhm.
there are lots of stuff online. I think Women Who Submit, Torch is great. Like Torch has events all the time, and Torch has them
Mhm.
online. Torch is very like out there. You can go to Torch website. There are
Mhm.
lots of events. I think they have a writing circle too, so you can start with Torch. That's
Yeah.
a good place to start, and then think about where you are in your career, and you can start applying to things like wherever you are in your career, you can start applying
Mhm.
your community that way. Um, Being intentional about how you reach out to people that's on your level. You know,
Mhm.
again, I'm talking to myself because I need to do this more. So, reaching out to people and showing up wherever you
Mhm.
are. So I don't know whoever asked that question, I don't know where you at right now, but
Mhm.
it depends on where you are. If you're in a place that's not artistic heavy, I would say go online. Threads is
Mhm.
a good one. Um,
Good.
yeah, and go to Instagram and see who follows who and kind of go down rabbit holes to find some community that way too.
Right. Yeah. Here's a question. Do either or both of you have next projects already in progress or, in a kind of thought phase? Are you working on something that you're willing to talk about? Or if it's too new, maybe you don't want to talk about it.
Well, I'm working on something that has become an obsession. And so that may not be the best place to start art because you do need to be able to sort of telescope back and forth. And I'm just like real crazy about it.
Hmm.
And it's about cotton. So both of my parents are Virginians or were Virginians.
Hmm.
And my dad joined the military. So I moved around and I adulted in Detroit. So I never actually spent a lot of time in the South or in Virginia. But I moved back 10 years ago to take care of my parents. So here I am in the South and I'm driving around and like there kind of feels down here. I mean, the first time I saw it, I stopped the car and I plucked some cotton and I just cried.
Mm.
It was just so emotional to me. And I'm like, why? There's an obvious why, but I felt like there was more for me to do. And so I am I am working on something that kind of threads the biology of cotton with the
Hmm.
history of cotton and my family's history. And I'm hoping that I can somehow contain all that.
Yeah. Okay. Cotton, huh? Hmm.
Cotton.
Yeah,
Cotton.
about
Ashunda?
I'm one of those people, but I talk about the film I'm gonna make, Cross School Goodbye to Stars, which is about
Hmm.
a Black woman who drowns in Lake Lanier intentionally, but then she
Hmm.
comes back as a water spirit. Um, Currently in pre-production. Anybody in the audience, if you're active, send me something. Um, but yeah, that's what I'm working on. I'm about to start casting. Um, and again, just basically forcing myself to make this film. It's this thing that happens with your art. You're like, is it time yet? Is it not time?
Yeah.
And it's time. So I am starting my casting process and crewing up. So that's what I'm working on that I'm comfortable, talking about and telling folks about. But
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So finally, here's a very traditional but always useful question. Do you have advice for young writers, young filmmakers? Should you go to school for film? Should you just get yourself a camera and go out and, you know, uh, walk wade through the water? What do you think for someone who's interested? What are some of the basic tools, and then what are some of the tools that are maybe a little bit higher in the tree?
Okay, so I'll talk lower in the tree because
Mm-hmm.
Ashunda is like the pro. So my film is 7 minutes long and it is shot in a warehouse and it is not a stage, it's women's faces. It's almost like a music video without music. It's
Mm.
a spoken word video about different women and their unplanned pregnancies. And I crowdfunded it. It was funded through a GoFundMe account, and all of the people were either reproductive choice advocates or their friends. People brought their parents. I had to have teenagers, and so parents brought their daughters as an act of, as a political act to have their faces in this film.
Oh.
And I got donations to pay the actors something like $100. And they also got a goodie bag with cookies and stuff in it. And then I put it up on YouTube free. So I never even tried to make anything. My role was the vision and the writing. And I knew that I am not a filmmaker. In fact, I got real nervous, Opal, when
I
I
know.
got to you and I'm like, but Ashunda's gonna be there. I'm not a filmmaker. I can't do this. But I did want people to know that, basically it was like a, DIY setup. I did get a professional filmmaker and paid him.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like a 1 day, blah, blah, and that's kind of how that went. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe if you're wondering, you can start pretty bare bones and just mess around with it and play around with it and see what you think. And what is your role? Is your role shooting or producing or writing or all of the above? And
Mm-hmm.
it may not be, you may not be in everything like Ashunda is.
Yeah.
So there's different roles. So try to figure that out. So
Mm-hmm.
then I will defer to the pro.
What you
Good.
talking about, Desiree? You made a film, so you're a filmmaker. Um, but yeah, I feel like I I think subconsciously I was a filmmaker and then I became one. Like I was one of those nerds who like write all the reviews and watch all the films and like study them and watch the Oscars and the Golden Globes before I even knew what they were and the politics behind them. And before I got to LA, very just a film nerd.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know film school existed. I didn't know that until I got to LA and I was like, what's that? So I applied for a community college because I was working, I think, and they had school classes at night. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I got into it, like learning the terminology and all of those things. You don't necessarily need that, but I'm the kind of person who likes to learn from other people. I'm always learning. If I
Yeah.
got a full ride, I'll probably go to film school even now. Like it's just I like to play with the toys. If you go to a good one, they have
Mm-hmm.
really great toys, very expensive toys
Yes.
that you get access to as a student. And if you can get a full ride, I would say go just to play with the toys. But if you don't have that, I would just say go on, just get it. It's easier said than done. I'm gonna just encourage you to like go find someone who has a camera, or think about what you want to do. Like Desiree said, do you want to write scripts? And then
Mm-hmm.
think about some screenwriting classes, right? Think about formatting. Um, do you want to be a producer? Like you might want to figure out how to get, some producing credits or just go and see who's making what where. Um, but it takes a lot of determination to be a filmmaker. It takes a lot of nerve and a lot of grit, especially if you're a Black woman. Those spaces are very hostile. So you have to find spaces where you feel safe within the hostile spaces if you do choose to go that route. Um, or just like do like searches online. There are a lot of Black women you can find on YouTube who are making films. I think you just have to decide what your route is. There's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
Um,
Good.
but I like film school for the toys. It's not
Yeah.
like it was in the 70s where you went to film school and you knew you were gonna get to Hollywood some kind of way. They were men though. So
Yeah. Well, true.
so it's a route for some people, but it's not the same as it was where there's a direct route to the industry if that's your jam. I would say go to learn and then figure out how you're gonna do it yourself. Like there's a filmmaker, a Gerima, Greenlight Yourself. We Black people, right? Like I don't know if other people, I'm talking to Black women first.
Mhm.
You created this, right? Like you created the image of looking and gazing at yourself by looking in the mirror or looking in the water. So I feel like just think about the ways that it's already in you and then figure out what you want to do and then go for it. It is
Okay.
easier said than done, but just choose your lane and use the resources where you are.
So now this may be the last question that we have time for, and we're combining, thanks, Brittany. We're combining two questions that maybe work together. What was your first place of sanctuary, and what are your favorite places of sanctuary outside of your own work?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's good. Two of them we sort of I said thanks, Brittany. We put those two questions together. They kind of help
Mhm.
each other.
But the
Uh,
first one was
what was your first place of sanctuary? You know, and I would say that you acknowledged as a space of sanctuary. And then what are your favorite places of sanctuary outside of your own works?
the library, uh,
Oh.
books, library. That was
Mm,
my sanctuary. To this day, if I'm stressed out, I can go to a library and
mm,
my nervous system is like, so I think that's just growing up in the house that I grew up in and growing up in a small town. It was a way for me to kind of just
mhm,
escape, the small townness, right? And then sanctuary now is a beach in the Caribbean
mm.
on a boat,
Well,
laughing
that's
out, watching
nice.
the sunset. That's sanctuary. Please do it. Get on a boat in the Caribbean and lay out in the sun and
Yeah.
watch the sunset. That's sanctuary for me.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a good thing to do.
Mhm. Well, we are sisters of another mother because I was going to say my bedroom, closed door and books.
Yes.
Just as a little girl, just read, 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 read. I read so much that finally my parents just said, okay, well, this is how you're going to earn your allowance. You get paid by the book because that's all I was going to do anyway. Um, and definitely outdoors, and I'm really not I am not afraid of like the woods and the bugs and the critters. I love camping. I love the beach is just amazing. But I walk a lot and I don't walk for my body. I walk for my spirit.
Mm,
And yeah, I'm just looking at everything and just noticing, the changes in the seasons and everything. It is very meditative. I have a monkey mind, so I can't meditate like normal people. So it's like a walking meditation where I'm just out of my body and I just absorb the outdoors.
mm,
I just love the sunshine. So
mm. Well, thank you both. I think that we've come to the end of our time. I think so. And I want to thank you both for your generosity and your thoughts and what you've shared with us about your work, but also just thinking about the ways that we can find those spaces that make us feel safe enough to do the work that we need to do. Before we sign off, we just want to make sure that we remind everyone that we've got um, Desiree's new book coming out. Desiree, tell us. Uh, Black,
Black Summers growing up in the urban outdoors.
and we do have links. Visit Torch Literary Arts online to find the books that are available for purchase. There are also links. Ashunda and Desiree were very generous in making available to us links to some of the works that we have mentioned and also work that we did not mention. So Ashunda has several films that she's given us access to. So, make sure you take advantage of the technology, and also, again, to thank them both. Thank you both for your generosity and for being here, and thank you for the work that you have done and that you will be doing. I want to also say that I'm very excited for all of the participation in our chat and our Q&A. We had a great audience tonight for this conversation. So this has been an excellent and marvelous experience for me as well. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
been
This is
wonderful.
wonderful.
Goodness, thank you both. That was incredible. I am so energized from that conversation and getting to be a fly on the wall and listen to your brilliant, incredible people share your thoughts and insights tonight. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us this evening. My name is Amanda Johnston. I'm the founder and executive director of Torch Literary Arts. It has been a thrill to have you here with us for this installment of the Welcome Table Talk series presented by Wintergreen Women Writers Collective and Torch Literary Arts. I hope you all found a bit of sanctuary here with us tonight. Thank you so much, Opal, Ashunda, Desiree, and for tonight's inspiring conversation. This was recorded, so we will have it available later for everyone to enjoy, and no FOMO for anyone. You don't have to miss out. You can watch it online later. And as a great thanks and gratitude to our amazing ASL interpreters from Pro Bono ASL. Thank you, Christina Monson and Marcus Cruz, for making this program more accessible to our community. We're so glad you could be with us this evening. I do want to encourage you all again, before you leave, make sure that you are following Wintergreen Women Writers Collective online and on social media to learn more about the incredible organization and programs and events coming up. Torch Literary Arts does have some events coming up that I want to quickly share with you. We have our writing circle, which is free and open to Black women and BIPOC non-binary writers to join twice a month to write in community. That will be April 6th and 18th. April 18th, we also have a virtual screenwriting workshop with Ashunda Norris, and we are still accepting registration for that until this Friday. So please, if you're interested in working with Ashunda in this free workshop, do check out the information at torchliteraryaarts.org and register for that. And then I also want to share that this is 20 years in 2026. We're celebrating 20 years of Torch Literary Arts. And we have a big gathering in September that everyone is invited to attend. Gathering of Flames, celebrating 20 years of Torch Literary Arts, will be in September here in Austin, Texas, in person. And our headlining features are Patricia Smith, Rachel Eliza Griffiths, Crystal Wilkinson, and Sharon Bridgeforth, including many others who will be a part of that 3-day event. So do check us out online at torchliteraryaarts.org for details. But we look forward to seeing you in the future at more events, and we thank you all for joining us this evening. Take good care of yourselves as always, and have a good evening.